Boom, boom. What comes to your mind when someone says baby boomer?
I think of sex.
Oh.
But, you know, you could say taco to me and I think of sex.
Boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang. Boom,
When I hear the word baby boomer, I think of my parents.
I think narcissism.
Awesome, cool, baby boomer.
Self-involvement.
Double income.
55.
Geriatric.
Ancient.
No kids.
Experience.
Aging.
Seasoned.
Totally into pop culture and will buy anything that advertisers throw at them.
Baby boomers is someone who was born between 1945 until 1964.
There's 76 million baby boomers today.
We challenge the basic institutions and the value structure of the society.
I couldn't agree more. Being a boomer.
Being a boomer.
boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang. Boom, 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 boom.
How.
First thing that comes to mind when people say baby boomer is sex. 'Cause there's a lot of them.
It's a conglomerate of 3 or possibly 4 different generations.
People that were born at the end and after World War II. There was a population explosion, which had to have come out of people, you know.
Servicemen came back home.
Horny GIs wanted to make up for some lost time. And did they ever?
When they came back, everyone was so excited and wanted to, start a family and get on with their lives.
People just stayed in bed and were like rabbits.
The women got together and said, you know what, life is too short. Let's just do it. And then boom, boom.
Boom.
Which gave us a whole new generation.
And that was the concept of baby boom. Boom.
In the 1960s, baby boomers were teenagers, and they were doing what teenagers do. They were rebelling against their parents' authority.
People were so consumed and focused with flesh and how they could please themselves and what they could do to feel better without thinking about the implications.
People said, I want to do things because it feels good, because I think it's okay.
It was identified as the sexual revolution.
I missed out on all that, the free sex. All I got is bad hair and bad drugs.
Sexual revolution for me is a quest for personal freedom in the bedroom.
So crusty, and the whole pajama thing. It's enough, Hugh. It's enough. When people talk about the sexual revolution, what I see is that, women became liberated.
And that's where the pill kicked in.
You wanted birth control? We got the pill. You don't like that? We got the sponge. Not so good, the diaphragm. How about the IUD? You want something in your arm? You can put something in your arm.
It's sex and the power of sex in the hands of women.
Women should enjoy sex, too.
Women could fornicate like men without worrying about getting knocked up.
My mother took me to the doctor. He put me on the pill because I had bad skin, and I had a very wonderful boyfriend at the time, and believe me, I was glad I was on the pill.
That's probably the next thing down the pipeline. A pill that you can take that will just induce orgasm. Like for the guy on the go. Like, baby, I ain't got time to lay you. Oh, good Lord. Gotta go.
Sex was a bad word in the 50s. And then all of a sudden, it was this explosion of sex in the 60s. And the guys started getting with the girls, and then all of a sudden, you had the hippies and the drugs, and sex became interesting then.
When I hear the phrase hippie sex, I think of unwashed.
I guess the overwhelming sensation is of a really bad smell.
Drug-induced dirty sex, which is actually the kind of sex that's happening today, but we take showers beforehand.
Hippie sex. Oof. What an oxymoron. Those are 2 words that should never be used in conjunction. Hippie sex.
Hippie sex is primarily about ignoring body hair. If the women can ignore the scraggly beards, and if the men can ignore the scraggly beards, you can have a lot of good hippie sex.
Almost every fetish that you can think of exists. Nobody wants to watch hippie porn. I think there's a very good reason for that.
I didn't like dirty hippies. And then as I got older, I realized I'm pretty much a dirty hippie.
When hippies found out that money was actually a pretty good thing to have, they sort of changed their whole philosophy.
Hippies became the 80s yuppies. I don't know what happened. Just one day they said, we gotta buy soap.
Baby boomers were never really politically correct.
Most of them are idiots. They're fat, they're overweight, they eat too much, they do too much, just self-indulgent. No, it's no better than any other generation being a boomer.
Being a boomer, yeah.
They were idealists, they threw that out, and then they became capitalists.
We can still have the sex, we'll just have it on a nicer bed with sheets instead of on the road in mud.
Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Dan Quayle was that kind of yuppie sex boomer vice president. You could, I mean, his wife was probably literally, you know, going over the grocery bill in her head while he was on top of her.
Hippie sex, you could kind of go, okay, it's maybe wild kind of sex, but yuppie sex, young, urban professional. Ugh, please. Who wants to bang the accountant? Nobody.
Baby boom generation, throughout their entire existence, has been looking for new and innovative ways to have sex with each other.
One reason I'm pissed I didn't get to have sex in the 70s is because of the key party. Now, these things were great.
They became tired of their partners, so they started doing what they call wife swapping and key parties.
Wife swapping and key parties were something I think the media found and really trumpeted large.
You know a man came up with that idea. All right, here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna drop your keys in this bowl, and at the end of the night, when we're all good and liquored up and smoked some good weed, we're gonna walk out, you're gonna grab a key, and whoever's car that is, that's the wife you take home and bang. But of course, it would never work with gay people, because, you know, if the guy didn't pick a BMW, I wasn't gonna go with him. I'm sorry, I'm not getting in a Prius.
Baby boomers created test tube babies.
For the first time, science is pushing the limits of how people live their lives.
Everything for the baby boomers. Whatever you want, Matt. Whatever you want, Sue. We'll make phony babies for you.
Test tube babies. And that's a child that odds are is going to be raised in a more loving environment than somebody who is conceived in the back of a Honda one night.
My cousins are actually test tube babies. They were the first ones, I think, in Atlanta. They're twins. They're a year younger than me.
I just have this image of a little teeny baby at the bottom of a test tube. Oh, please.
What do you do when you want to see your dad and you're a test tube baby? He's in the top drawer? It's a turkey baster, son.
I think my third grade teacher was a test tube baby. Something is wrong with that woman. She had to be born, and she could not have been born by a human.
I thought I had issues just because I grew up in a small town. Imagine if I grew up in a test tube.
Women are freezing their eggs.
It's a very boomer thing. Stick your eggs aside for later when it's going to be okay to have some stretch marks. Make a couple of $1 million, boom, get knocked up. Have your baby when you're 40, die when it's 20. It's a very have-it-all idea.
Look, if you ain't got a man now who can fertilize your egg, you're ugly. In 10 years, nothing's gonna change. So why are you doing it? You're just wasting money that you could be using on plastic surgery to make you more attractive to meet a man who can naturally fertilize your egg tomorrow.
Well, eventually they're gonna have the pregnancy clapper. I'd like a baby. Clap on. You know, twice for a girl, once for a boy.
I don't like the idea of frozen semen. And because to me it sort of symbolizes men who want their legacy to live forever. Maybe there should be like a basic screening process. And if you're determined to be an egomaniacal ass, they'll just take your semen. When you turn around, throw it in the trash. End of semen. End of lineage.
Ah! Boom.
Protest became an art form for the baby boomers.
Baby boomers have to protest something.
They were sitting in, they were standing up.
Stop marching and start working.
Boom, boom, boom. Bang, 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 bang.
It's your thing. Do what you wanna do.
Protest became an art form for the baby boomers.
Baby boomers always have to have a cause to fight for. They have to protest something.
What you wanna do?
They were sitting in. They were standing up.
Save the rainforest. Don't save the rainforest.
They were singing. They were marching.
Every piece of historic footage you watch is just people in a big pack walking down a street.
The Million Woman March, the Gay March, the Straight March, the Animal Rights March, the I Love Jennifer Flowers March. Stop marching and start working.
When we think of baby boomers, we think of people protesting the Vietnam War.
I'm a little embarrassed. I mean, right before I went into Vietnam, I beat up an anti-war protester.
The hippie generation came, and they did not want to fight.
There was a divide within our generation between those who fought the war and those who protested.
With the whole rock and roll kind of revolution and the whole picketing and Vietnam, it kind of became a really passionate time.
Unconscionable. Damn it, this country is at war. We've committed the flag. We're doing battle. You ought to support this. I came back, you know, I very willingly lent myself to the anti-war movement because the war was absurd.
And the hippie generation came, and they said, you know what? We don't want to fight these people. We're just going to put flowers in the gun barrels.
I just think it's a really bad idea to ever approach anyone who has a gun with a flower.
That's just so peaceful protest. It's really sweet.
Traditionally in combat, it's proven an ineffective method.
Well, it's a little emasculating when somebody puts a flower in your rifle. Because then you got to go, dude, come on.
I mean, I'm sure the guy with the gun doesn't know what to think.
Can you take the flower out of my gun, please? Because it makes me look kind of gay.
Probably made him turn his mind over and over again, thinking, what am I doing here with this gun?
The National Guardsmen are thinking, come on, hippie, please don't be a Please just take the flower out. Because then I got to do it, and I got to get the guy and put the gun down and take the flower out.
I hate guns.
You had John Lennon and Yoko Ono. They decided to get into a bed, and they're going to protest peace by being in the bed.
Well, they weren't really protesting so much as they were just supporting peace in general.
They were going to stay in bed until Vietnam was over or something like that?
They were also sleepy.
They figured if they hung out in bed, maybe, you know, there'd be more peace.
There's something really kind of beautiful about it.
You follow the logic, right? Let's get into bed. Peace.
That's my type of protest, being in the bed. I like that, especially with a good-looking man like John Lennon was. Yeah, yeah, I'd do that any day.
I think the idea was, we're going to be in bed anyway. Why not have a press conference about it? That's called multitasking.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Let's protest something that's worth it. Let's just have a bed in. All of America should just have a bed in when we don't go to work. But see, we don't do that. Generation X would never think of that. We would have to have a hip-hop summit or something like that.
I mean, unbelievably, it did work. The war stopped the next day. We pulled out of Saigon. I mean, I think they were as surprised as anybody when that happened.
I've always felt very proud of the fact that I'm a boomer, and I'm a middle boomer kind of because my older sister sort of grew up in the generation that was all the bra burning, women's lib, and sort of paved the way for my group.
Women's lib, first thing that comes to my mind is burning of bras.
That's pretty cool. I wish I'd been there.
First thing you need to do when you get an army together is create a flag. You need a symbol.
What a great and bold statement it was to burn your bra.
Screw you. We're burning our bras. We're walking around braless. Braless lawless.
I would burn an 18-hour bra. I don't blame those women. You know, they get tired of wearing those steel. I mean, they were wrapped in steel, and they weren't cotton bras yet. They said it was for, you know, independence, but no, the bras hurt. That's why they were burning bras.
It doesn't seem like it would work for a feminist cause to me. It seemed like it pandered more to creepy, horny Hugh Hefner types.
The guys thought it was great. Yay!
I do applaud it, you know? I mean, I'm not wearing any underwear right now, so in some ways, I mean, big up to my sisters.
I actually like bras. I do, I can't help it, especially underwire bras. Just want to let you know that.
They certainly become more flattering. Is that sexist?
You want me to pay attention? Show me a brassiere.
Fabulous.
I'm feeling a hardening of the artillery now.
You know what? Some baby boomers, they will fight for animals before they fight for people rights.
People throwing paint on furs, you know, the animal rights issue.
I don't feel like fur protests really started until the 80s. I feel like in the 60s, people were already so furry, they'd be like protesting themselves.
A lady could be wearing a fur walking down 6th Avenue, and all of a sudden 700 people show up and go, you shouldn't wear fur, you shouldn't wear fur, but they're all wearing leather shoes.
Let somebody protest and try to throw some paint on my fur coat. First of all, do you know how long it took me to get that fur coat?
I'm a vegetarian, but I would have no problem killing a cow to make a nice leather coat. Because if you take a spill on a motorcycle, a tofu jacket's not really going to save you too much.
I mean, I personally would never, ever, ever wear fur. Ever. Unless someone gave me one.
Unfortunately, when there isn't a hugely unjust war going on, you end up protesting, you know, whatever you got.
Hands Across America was a one-day event where people joined hands and formed an unbroken chain, just like the Great Wall of China, across the entire nation.
Probably more closely akin to a soda pop commercial.
Everybody from the tip of America all the way to the other side of America is going to hold hands.
Nobody's quite sure why this was a good idea or what we were protesting, but everybody got a free T-shirt.
I don't think it worked because someone didn't want to hold someone's hand because they were gay or black, so it didn't work.
They couldn't get enough people into, like, Montana and the Dakotas.
No, there's some areas that they actually had to have a rope.
But I know my mother had one of those oversized white sweatshirts that said Hands Across America on it.
This was a protest funded in large part by the T-shirt manufacturers of America. It's primarily what it was for, a way to distribute T-shirts.
You can take protest in another direction where you can get 1 million of your closest friends together and march on Washington. Or, you know, you can use the power of one. You know, I'm reminded of that little Chinese man in Tiananmen Square standing before that giant tank, literally immobilizing the Chinese army, because they were not going to run him over with the world watching.
When you see effective change, when you fight or march or speak or give or whatever, yell, and you see change, it's almost like a crazy drug. And you see that not only one person, but hundreds of people, thousands of people can make a change.
Cut back to a boomer, their idea of the tank is, you know, there are these 100-year-old trees slated to be cut down by the logging companies, and they would literally climb the tree, chain themselves to the tree.
Don't cut down this tree, I'm going to live in the tree for 10 years.
I can only imagine, too, how much terrible poetry was written up there.
I mean, God bless them. They love the trees, but come on. At a certain point, you run out of things to burn. You run out of ways to stand up or sit down. So people in my generation have to think of new ways to protest things.
You don't have to do much these days. You don't have to get out and march. You can just, you know, state your opinion online.
We're a pathetic, pathetic generation. We have nothing to protest. Now, what do we get upset about? Gay marriage.
Yay for the gay people. Let the gay people get married so they can be miserable like the rest of us.
Hey, all you people who are already married, you can still be married. Nobody's going to take that away from you.
If I was gay, I guess I would want to get married for the tax cut.
I think that's what baby boomers wanted back at the time. It's just to show that we could all get along and protest something.
You can't separate music from the experiences of the boomer generation.
I think every boomer home movie has 4 kids somewhere doing the Beatles.
It was rock and roll, the symbol of that counterculture generation.
I love seeing the old footage of the Beatles, and the girls are going crazy, and they're just crying.
Everything else in this job, you will get tired of. The girls, you will never get tired of, ever.
Boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang.
It is through music, more than anything else, that baby boomers express their rebellion against their parents' generation, and then over time, develop their own voice.
For most people, most music is a soundtrack. It's peripheral. It's an emotional thing.
The Who song My Generation is an anthem for the boomer generation because it makes this direct and explicit generational appeal. You can't imagine ever being 40.
It was rock and roll, the symbol of that counterculture generation.
If the Kennedy assassination is the politically defining moment for the baby boom generation, probably the Beatles coming in 1964 was the defining cultural moment for the baby boom.
To this day, I remember going to school the next day. Everybody was talking about it. That's what kind of impact they had on America. Little kids in an all-black school were talking about wigs, Beatle boots, and Nehru jackets.
I think every boomer home movie has 4 kids somewhere from the family or the neighborhood doing the Beatles.
I mean, come on. The Beatles started almost everything.
And I was John in my family.
I love seeing the old footage of the Beatles when they first came to America, and the girls are going crazy, and they're just crying.
What the hell y'all crying for? It's 4 guys that you have no chance in hell of sleeping with.
Well, they were all wearing girdles. When you wear a girdle, you just pass out real easy. It restricts the blood flow.
I think that's what women really started wanting to become liberated, because they're like, wow, what is it like to be with a Beatle? See, everything is about sex. It always surrounds about sex.
It's a damn good reason to get this job. It's the one thing you'll never get tired of. Everything else in this job, you will get tired of. The girls, you will never get tired of, ever.
The Beatles represent and further this sense of rebellion among the young. If you look at the background for rock and roll and for the music of the 1960s, it is tied directly to the political protests of the decade. And the two work hand in hand. That provides the fuel and the momentum that's really driving this youth revolt against the establishment. And a lot of the anger that you see expressed through music is directly tied to the anti-war protest after 1965.
Woodstock was a place that I really wanted to be.
I wish I could have been at the first Woodstock.
By the time they got to Woodstock, they were 500,000 strong. I know that much.
It's a shorthand now. When people think of the baby boom, they think of Woodstock, as if the entire generation was smoking pot, having sex, and rolling around in the mud.
Wasn't that kind of how it was billed?
So much stellar talent on one bill.
Hey, we're all getting together. It's going to be you, me, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, and some of the Allman Brothers are going to show up. It's going to be a good time.
As cool as Woodstock may sound, you know, people forget that Sha Na Na was on the bill, too.
Woodstock. Oh, God.
It was invented initially to make some cash, and it turned into history when it rained.
That was kind of God's way of telling people to take a shower.
500,000 people chanting no rain, and the skies just opened up and poured on them. Just like, I mean, get real.
That was the government, man. They had seeded the clouds.
You had the hippies
just dancing naked in the mud.
I just remember seeing the footage on television thinking, oh my gosh, is that person naked?
It just looked like a really bad traffic jam. I think growing up in Los Angeles, you have this traffic phobia. Every time I see the aerial footage, I'm like, oh, you could never get a space. It would be so hard to get in and out of there. Just looked like a real nightmare.
I don't think I would have enjoyed Woodstock. 1, I don't like being dirty. 2, it's just a bit much, don't you think? 3 days. 1 day, sure. 2 days, you're pushing it. 3 days, you know what? Get me out of Socrates. I just want to go home.
But, you know, the collection of talent that was roaming the countryside, whether it was the Rolling Stoneses or the Miles Davises, whether it was the Jimi Hendrixes, they were all playing together.
The alignment of music with politics, I think, was unique to that basic period.
Folk music. You'd think if you're going to have protest music, it would be a little harder edged. Not so much of the "Are you going to Scarborough Fair" variety, but that's what they did, and God love them.
I remember getting caught sneaking out my window by my dad in 8th grade junior high school to go see Janis Joplin with Iron Butterfly opening up, I think it was $3.50 and $4.50 for the tickets. It was an epoch of music and performance arts that is yet to be equaled.
But then disco came, and
it had a beat. It was, you know, an insatiable beat.
I think maybe I was threatened by disco because it was somewhat gay.
You can ring my bell. Disco was it was a great time.
I think disco is just basically throwing up your hands and going, I don't know. I'm a big believer in disco. I think disco is a revolutionary force in American society.
You just felt free.
I don't have a clue. So, what's Warhol doing tonight? Andy?
Disco is just one beat. Boom, boom, boom.
When I think of the disco era, I always think of Studio 54.
Boom, 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 boom.
And then you think of the basement in Studio 54, where everybody used to hang out and do drugs if you were part of the in crowd. So disco, drugs, and sex seem to all go hand in hand.
You could do whatever you wanted to do at a disco.
You saw the outfits. You had to be high to walk out of your house after looking in the mirror going, I look good. Well, I really look good right now.
You guys were full of crap 10 years ago. You were just kind of doing something, but you didn't really believe in it. You could not be more opposed than, like, naked, hairy, muddy people on acid and, like, guys in white satin suits doing blow and shaking ass to Donna Summer. So it just went to show you that the boomers, like, were kind of kidding in the 60s. They were just kidding.
Then came the punk rock era because people started getting tired of disco.
There was no better moment than when punk rock began to erase disco music.
People, I think, just got fed up with the status quo and they needed a change. So this young group got together and said, look, well, let's take some sugar paste, we'll stick our hair straight up, I'll put some safety pins through my and ta-da!
Ironically enough, there's a real idealism in punk rock. If you listen to Joe Strummer and you listen to The Clash, it was about changing the world. It just was about changing the world a different way.
MTV, when that came on, it was so much fun.
MTV, you know, again, you know, birthed because, you know, the networks weren't gonna let anything that wacky in.
When MTV came on, they had like 4 videos, and you just sat there and watched them over and over and over.
I want my MTV.
I wanted my MTV. I want my MTV. No doubt I will want my MTV in the future.
Boomers grew up watching American Bandstand, so it makes sense that a boomer then would create a new vehicle where you would see music and see images that are directly related to the lyrics of the music.
Before that, you could only see your favorite artist like on the album cover, or if your parents happened to take you to a show, which never happened.
You saw rock stars as sort of leads in their own little movies.
Suddenly, it was no longer enough to be able to write a catchy tune. Now you had to look pretty good in makeup.
MTV was a perfect baby boomer invention because it was music, which was idealism, which was artistic, and it was money, which was capitalism. It was very, very, very boomer.
MTV was a vision not so much of music, but of what to wear, how to talk, how to walk, how to slang, how to hang, how to bang.
Hip-hop! We said, you know what? We don't need instruments. We'll just use our mouths and we'll use a beat and we'll talk about what's happening in the street.
That's what the kids wanted to hear. It felt as though there was music that was talking specifically to them.
Baby boomers today react to rap music of today and hip-hop the same way their parents reacted when the Beatles came here. So there is this passing of the generation that's taking place.
Run DMC made rap music safe for suburban white people, I can tell you that much.
They were actually the first rap group to collaborate with a rock group, Aerosmith.
And when you saw those two bands together, you were like, whoa, Aerosmith are down with Run DMC? That's so rad. I'm totally down with Run DMC.
And they said, wow, it's amazing. It's the same beat. Duh. It's been the same beat all along, which means that we're all one. We're all universal. Walk this way. And you can rap it. Talk this way.
There was something really revolutionary about that moment. And it was really the first time that, like, the suburbs got their first really meaty taste of hip-hop music.
Music in general has been able to join people from all walks of life together.
You can't separate music from the experiences of the boomer generation.
Blue jeans were great. Each pair had its own personality, and depending on who you were that day, you put that pair on. So they became sort of the statement of the generation.
I saw Jerry Seinfeld one night with a blazer and blue jeans and tennis shoes, and no one looked and said, he could have dressed up for us.
I never really understood the tie-dye look. People today still wear tie-dye. I just want to go up to them and slap them like Richard Simmons at an airport.
The arrival of the miniskirts were the beginning of an emancipation in terms of fashion.
I think I invented the miniskirt, actually, especially that Catholic girl short skirt look. I didn't know they like that.
Homina, homina.
Boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang.
When the boomers are coming of age, it represents a challenge to every aspect of American society. They challenge the music, they obviously challenge the politics, and they even challenge the style.
The arrival of the miniskirts were the beginning of an emancipation in terms of fashion.
The development of miniskirts is directly related to the widespread use of the pill. Women are able to be more provocative. They can be freer in the way they express themselves, in part because the pill allows them this new sense of freedom.
Up until that point, skirt lengths were dictated by parents. But from the middle 1960s on, fashions were really dictated by the marketplace and by women.
The miniskirt really revolutionized that entire kind of peeping Tom process. But also it was like a really obvious reaction. It was like, Mom wore them long, I'm gonna wear them as short as I possibly can. You know, I'm gonna wear them like to here. And that's why men didn't wear them, because it would fall out of the bottom of it.
I remember I was in high school when they came out, freshman year, and I thought they were like the greatest thing, especially being a Catholic schoolgirl. It was like fun to wear miniskirts on the weekends since you couldn't wear them in your school uniform.
Bouffant hair and a miniskirt didn't work for me. Miniskirt, something else a little looser on top with, you know, the more the Carly Simon hair and all that. Homina.
Every year they say the miniskirt's coming back, and sometimes it does, but it doesn't really. Late 60s, early 70s, there was a brief period where everybody was trying to cram themselves in the miniskirts and hot pants. That's not a good idea. Now you see them, it's usually appropriate, or it's a hooker.
I think I invented it when I went to Catholic school because I was raised in a Dominican Catholic convent. I used to roll my skirt up so it was like this big, and then I'd get beaten for it by the nuns. So I think I invented the miniskirt, actually, especially that Catholic girl short skirt look. And you know they like that.
Homina.
Hippie fashion was basically this. Whatever I see behind my eyelids after I do this is what's going to be on my clothing.
I never really understood the tie-dye look. You know, I would look at a bunch of hippies standing in a crowd, and I would think I was looking through a kaleidoscope.
I suspect the birth of tie-dye was somebody on Haight Street throwing up all over a white shirt.
They said, okay, let's just put a bunch of colors on a shirt.
I think it's fun. I always say, don't be afraid of color.
And they did. They put purple, orange, yellow, and it really looked pretty. That's because they were high.
I've taken quite a bit of LSD in my life, and I've never looked at a tie-dye shirt and been like, it's a pretty nice looking shirt. I'm gonna go tie-dye some of my other crap.
People today still wear tie-dye. I just want to go up to them and slap them like Richard Simmons at an airport.
What is fashionable is a basic uniform of blue jeans and t-shirt with a few extras to express your very own self.
Jeans are the classic cultural statement of the baby boom generation. It's a piece of clothing that we identify with hippies in the 1960s.
Blue jeans, Levi's, gotta be Levi's.
I have a blue jean tux. I have a tux made of blue jeans with a satin line down the side.
Blue jeans were great. Each pair had its own personality, and depending on who you were that day, you put that pair on. So they became sort of the statement of the generation.
The blue jeans were originally created in the 19th century for people working in coal mines. By the 1970s, everyone's wearing blue jeans. It's a great symbol for the impact the boomer generation had on American society. The baby boomers democratized American culture.
Acid wash blue jeans. I tried to get that look by just, putting some bleach in the washing machine, and it messed my blue jeans up.
The already previously washed out jeans, those are dumb. It's like, why don't you just buy a pair of jeans and you can wear them for a while and make them your own?
In the 80s, you went through this fad of designer. You had Gloria Vanderbilt. Oh, you had to have Gloria Vanderbilt. Then you had to have chic jeans.
Don't you know?
Chicks got your jeans.
Chick jeans.
Well, I love logos. I'm a tag fag. I like you to know what I paid. And the logo tells you what I paid. I can look at your shirt. Oh, Latiger, your parents are poor. Izod? Oh, hi, I'm Aunt. Nice to meet you. Welcome to my home.
I saw Jerry Seinfeld one night with a blazer and blue jeans and tennis shoes. And no one looked and said, he could have dressed up for us.
There's wide fit, relaxed fit, and all these things are for baby boomers who don't want to admit that they can't fit in their jeans anymore. But they don't want to give up the emblem, the symbol of the 1960s.
When I first think about hippies, I think about being in high school and hearing the score to the show Hair and thinking, oh, I can't wait to meet a hippie.
I think when people look back on the baby boomer generation, hairstyles have been the biggest reflection of change that you could ever imagine. Let's go to the 1950s. We all kind of basically looked the same.
In the mid to late 60s, if you had longer hair, obviously, it seemed that you were leaning more towards the anti-war.
So if you're anti-establishment, you're going to grow your hair long down to your buttocks and say, hey, man, I'm not conforming to your ways with your haircuts. I'm going to have split ends, man.
Rock stars started to do it. I know my dad has long hair. And I was always around men with long hair. I actually love long hair on men.
Oh, it was so sexy. Oh, goodness, I loved it. They always had longer hair than me, especially the brothers. They had afros that were like out to here, like 16 feet afros.
I was jealous. I couldn't stack my hair, I've been thinning since an early age.
Back in the 60s, long hair was cool. Now long hair is, you're gay.
There's no worse fashion era than the disco fashion.
Everything's a reaction to something else, Disco was just, God, what was disco?
It was just elitist, and it was about people looking good. I was never going to look good, and I was never going to be rich or cool or happening. So, there really wasn't anything for me,
We're going to be star-spangled tonight. We're going to be fabulous and glittery and glamorous and glitzy and gay.
Disco was a phase that America needed to blow off steam and to show its creativity and to, help with the creation of the bedazzler.
We're going to wear our shorts as high as we can possibly wear them and as tight as they can possibly be.
I just did not look good in bell-bottoms and platform shoes. I do look good in an afro, though.
What Boomers have done with style and fashion. They have individualized it and made it more informal.
They were the first generation to take